morning. Almost done. Welcome. I'm Tommy Como from the Greater Long Beach chapter. And just a couple announcements. We all know the drill with cell phones. Let's turn the cell phones down. If you got that tax emergency client, just go ahead and step on out. Last chance, if you've not renewed your membership, you can do it here. Go ahead and receive a $25 discount. Save $80 on the next symposium for the Autumn Classic, which is 9/21/17, and the Tax Bridge, which is 12/7/17. Two great courses for $300. Let's see, lunch is on your own. That's what it says. Don't blame me. And then ethics and stump the experts will be in AV, not in the big hall. William E. Rogers is the founder of Ascend Business Advisory, a small tax and financial advisory firm in Rancho Santa Fe, California. He is passionate in helping businesses eliminate the hassles of running their businesses. He earned a bachelor's degree in business management from the University of Redlands, an MBA from the University of Southern California, and an MS in finance from Golden Gate University. He's also a certified financial planner and an enrolled agent, Underachiever U. He has served as the past president of North County chapter of the California Society of Tax Consultants, past president of the Palomar chapter of the California Society of Enrolled Agents, and served as director for the California Society of Enrolled Agents. Over the past 8 years, Mr. Rogers has developed extensive experience in advising e-commerce business. He counsels entrepreneurial ventures in a broad array of areas such as accounting, tax, finance, and strategic planning. Please welcome William Rogers.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3, the third and final day here at our wonderful summer symposium in Las Vegas. We've had a lot of wonderful presentations on a wide breadth of different topics, estates, trusts, as well as Schedule A, business entities, so on and so forth. When you attend some of my presentations, if you're a Star Wars fan, if you like Star Trek, sci-fi, any of that, we look to the future in my presentations, because that's how a lot of our clients are. They're innovative, they're entrepreneurial. But unfortunately, our tax laws look back in their predated, decades-old law, and we have to take these rules and somehow apply them to modern-day entrepreneurs. And so in this presentation, as we're talking about gig and sharing economy and kind of getting people up to speed and understanding what is this that all of a sudden is starting to morph. Well, let's talk about here in Las Vegas is that most of us here are tourists. We do not live and reside here. So how many of you, when you went to the airport or just traveling around, going to a show, going to dinner, used some sort of non-public transportation, not a taxi, not a bus, what we call an Uber or Lyft? How many of you? Just a small number, okay? Now, a few years ago, most people would say, what is it? It didn't exist. But I assure you that probably 5 years from now, it would be probably 2/3 of everyone will say yes. Because it's grown so fast and been such a viable substitute that in such a short period of time, it has already threatened typical legacy players when we see taxi cabs and we see buses and trains. If you've ever had an experience of riding an Uber or Lyft, you find people from all walks of life. You'll find people who are military, reservists. You'll find people stay-at-home moms. You'll find those people who are retired trying to supplement their income, to those people who just want to make enough money to feed their family, and so they do a variety of things, whether it's Uber, it's Lyft, go work in a restaurant, or clean houses. Thus cobbling together a bunch of part-time jobs we call gigs, because that has been the nature of the economy many people found themselves in today, was the lack of being able to find sustaining full-time employment opportunities. So people have had to become creative and entrepreneurial in order to make their income to get by. So when we talk back and we go back in history a little bit, how we got to today in this moment, I did a presentation over 10 years ago, and I talked about this new and emerging thing. And I was saying, and my idea was that, you know, a lot of people for the longest time, they sold their stuff, they went to a yard sale, they went to swap meet. It was just junk, they didn't make money. However, there's this thing out there where people are actually making some money. They're taking their old Beanie Babies, they're taking their baseball cards, their, you know, signed jerseys, pottery, paintings, all kinds of things, and they're actually making money and being profitable. It's called eBay. And a lot of people thought it was silly. Then all of a sudden it became a worldwide phenomenon. Because it was so brand new, a lot of people said, I'm not going to go and put my credit card online. I don't know if I'm going to get my product. And over time, people gained trust and credibility, and it became commonplace where all of a sudden people would say, you know what, I want to go sell that old couch. And then they would say, Mom, why don't you just sell it on eBay? Right? Where you just thought of giving it away to, you know, the Salvation Army or AMVETS. That's kind of what happened. And so it became commonplace. But soon thereafter, as e-commerce morphed and we went from collectibilities, we came here. And what happened is that we did more shopping of our regular everyday purchases. And most of us here have grown up and we were cultured and tuned to when we shop, we went to the mall. That's just the way we were. We went to a store, we went to a department store. Woolworth, Montgomery Ward's, Mervyn's. That's what we did. You went to a place and you had a little bit of experience. You tried perfume, you tried on some things, but you went to a place. But this slowly and then quickly started basically replacing all that. So as it's becoming more commonplace, and then we got these guys. You see this here? You put these two together, and then you start communicating in different ways. Where we live our lives here. And so we're just here living all of our lives, a little 5-inch screen, and then all of a sudden now we have people who only want to communicate this way instead of giving a formal speech in a rose garden, right? This is what happened. And then all of a sudden we're enthralled by little cats. But the point is, we're all addicted to our phones. You don't even recognize your kids anymore. They're space aliens. You got to text them. It's dinner time. Will you please come and sit at the table? Now! Yes, sir.
We can turn on the microphone right up there because it's playing.
Yeah. That's what's happened. Now, when you move from and as well as technology advancing, let's also talk about the economy. We had the housing crash in 2008. And when we had a major financial crisis, you found basically millions of people without a job. So you have this convergence coming together. So basically, people still have to find a way to get by. It's not the army anymore, it's Uber. That's what my dad said. You didn't have a job, you go to Vietnam. That was during his time. But now people do Uber. See, in order to go and get a job. And they didn't have in terms of any job prospects. So in terms of the economic definition, what we call part-time workers, gig workers, so on and so forth, Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Census Bureau uses this definition, contingent worker, when they measure it. And what a contingent worker is any provisional worker who works for a company on a non-permanent basis or is working under an alternative work arrangement. Let's move beyond just people who are just Uber drivers. How many of you have had a friend, a family member just recently, maybe have changed jobs, lost jobs, but as they found one it was a contract or an assignment. How many of you have encountered that situation from someone you know? Clint.
Yeah, I have a media, very smart media person, and she holds a job for a little bit, then all of a sudden she's back out and under contract.
Right.
And she used to be a Disney artist.
An artist, someone who's professional has a lot of skills. We're not just talking a driver. We're not talking people, when we think about, typically the idea is lower level skills, an artist. My brother worked with a defense contractor. Contract ends when they're done building their weapon system and people get laid off. All of a sudden, when he's trying to go to another company, what are they getting offered? A contract. And typically what that means for us as tax practitioners, 1099. That's what it usually means. But in the bigger sense is that people are also getting jobs where they're not going to get benefits, predominantly medical. They won't incur overtime, as well as have retirement and so on and so forth. That's the bigger global issue at stake. I have a number of clients this year who are engineers. I have a scientist, PhD, work with different pharmaceutical companies. We have a lot of pharmaceutical companies in the San Diego area, and they're all contractual assignments. That's what has basically happened today. So we're thinking freelancers, we're thinking independent contractors, part-time employees, temporary hires. They're all thrown in this bucket of what we call contingent workers. It's all a mishmash of everything that what we typically don't think is a permanent full-time job with one employer. Okay? That's what we're referring to. And thus the term gig workers, because I'm cobbling together one gig at a time to make my living. Okay? So when we look in terms of by the numbers, where, as I was talking about, scientifically, professionally, and all the technical trades, we're just at about under 600,000 right now. But if you look at the top bar on the graph, which is far past anything else, reaching 1 million, is what we call other services. And other services is a collection of, when we're thinking of the Uber drivers, it could be people like us who could be doing consulting, bookkeeping. It could be people doing home health care. It's everything what we call in terms of in the other. So as of 2005, there were 9 million gig jobs in the United States. Fast forward to 2015, it was 53 million gig jobs in the United States. 5-fold increase. According to Government Accountability Office, 40.4% of current workforce is estimated to be in one of these type of work arrangements. That's a big swath. You're going to have people come into your office probably in these type of work arrangements. Some estimates are projecting that in the next 10 years over half of the workforce will be in these type of jobs, where we are accustomed to working one company, getting a paycheck and a W-2. Now people are getting a collection, and it's not consistent. Some 1099, some W-2, but no two are the same. You're just getting this collection of income, and your client doesn't ferret out or understand the difference. They may think they're an employee in all of them, but you have to explain it to them, and we're going to walk through that. So the largest category, when I said in terms of these other services, you're thinking of the pet sitters, appliance repairmen, couriers. We fall into that because there are people, if they want to offer accounting, tax, consulting, any of that, that's that other category. That's the one that is by far growing here. Most of you here run your own practice. You don't work for someone. Who here owns their own practice? Most of you. Okay. Let's suppose you're going to make a logo for your business. Okay? A brochure. It's very common now that people are going out on the internet and you're asking for bids amongst people. I'd just like to do a logo, I'd like to do a brochure, and a few handouts professionally in my office. It's very common. People are going on a website and you have different people competing for your work. And then you're picking based upon the bid and everything. And you basically pick the one you feel, okay, that's best price, you think quality, reputation, so on and so forth. This is common practice, that people more and more are going into these websites. There could end up a time when people may want bookkeeping tax services, and then they find all these people on an Uber-like website and go and compete online. There's a possibility. But that's kind of how it works. So when we talk about the gig economy, the first kind of evolution of it comes from ride sharing. Okay? So as I was talking about when we're traveling around and you're enjoying yourself out here in Las Vegas, it's very convenient. Call up a ride, you get on your app, and then they're there, voila, quickly. I don't have to get out cash, I don't have to deal with change. Everything is charge a card, so we got convenience. A lot of people like the experience. So this has obviously become mainstream. So this was an idea I talked about a number of years when it was in the context of virtual workers. So we're trying to apply this as well as when we get into gig workers. So companies are always trying to assert and allege, well, the person's working from home. I don't require them to dress up and shave and whatever, so they can't be my employee. Isn't that the argument? As ridiculous as it is, but that's the argument that they try to make. But when we're getting in an issue, is it truly an employee or is it a bona fide independent contractor? This is their argument that they try to make. And as it gets tested over time in worker classification, it starts to basically boil down to the elements of the financial control and actually the behavioral control, correct? Because that's what we end up looking at. We're not looking at the dress code, okay? We're looking at how the job is done, how the work requirements, financial responsibilities, tools, supplies, so on and so forth. So that doesn't matter. So in theory, the same thing in terms of the ride sharing could be a potential argument. Don't know. So this is the question that rests today that has not yet been answered. Are these drivers truly independent contractors or employees? So far, it's in the courts. Some states have ruled, yes, employee. Some states have said, no, independent contractor. But we need a common platform. And when you get in dispute what one state says versus another, you need either federal legislation from Congress or it has to go to states, has to go to federal Supreme Court. That's the only way you resolve these conflicts, and that's where we're at today in 2017. Has to work its way through the judicial system, or we need something out of Congress to basically state once and for all, is there a parameter, is there a framework? What's happening right now is that as you're getting clients coming in, they're being most likely treated as a 1099. That's how they're being treated. Doesn't mean that's the proper way that they should. All what we're doing is we're tasked with doing the return. We're not handling in terms of Ubers. Okay, so that's what I want to shed light. But what you have to understand that always being a Schedule C may not be as beneficial, or it could be beneficial. The reality is that no two people are alike. And so to go out and say, yeah, everyone's an independent contractor, here's what's going to happen. Some will be better off, some will definitely be worse off, and some, what we call maybe no harm, no foul. That's the reality. So let's go into and kind of explain a little bit of this situation so you understand what I'm talking about is the dilemma. So just as a refresher of Schedule C, number one, we have to pay self-employment tax. That's a cost. When I work for a company, I only pay half. So if you're shifting me to being an independent contractor status, I have to pay the other cost. And most people are usually in a situation is they're simple, they're people, modest means. They don't have that money, and that's an additional burden for them. But as a positive, I can deduct my expenses. So that's why I'm saying, looking at the situation, I may have to incur SE, but given my expenses, that's why I say we don't know yet. But you're also able to deduct some other type of deductions. What I mean are adjustments to income on the front page of 1040, your half of your self-employment, your self-employed health insurance. may be beneficial, but not necessarily to everybody, because some people don't pay for health insurance. They get it free. It's a subsidy, right? So it may not be applicable. But on the W-2 side, I don't have to pay for my half. The company's paying for it. I'm only paying 7.65. But on the deductions, I have to itemize. And a lot of these people may not itemize. They may have deductions of less than their standard deduction. Okay? In addition, they have to report these on 2106. So they're not going to get dollar for dollar. They're going to lose 2%. And then to make it matters worse, they may lose it as a result of A&T. So you have to kind of ferret through all those. So let's walk through an example. So turn to page 3. And we're going to talk about Judy Robinson. Judy Robinson is a single taxpayer, age 28, with no dependents. She lives in downtown San Diego, rents an apartment, and makes minimal donations to charity. So what is that kind of telling us so far?
Short form.
Short form, right? In previous years, file 1040 EZ. Still kind of short form. It's kind of straightforward there. Tax year 2015 will be the first year that she itemizes her deductions due to Uber-related expenditures. Means her situation hasn't changed except she got a job with Uber. That's it. Okay? So let's walk through the numbers. For tax year 2015, Judy earned $35,000 driving solely for Uber. She had a 2012 Toyota Prius, current Blue Book value $13,500. Drove 8,500 miles for business and 2,000 miles personal. Vehicle insurance $495. Gas $1,850. Service repairs $1,115. Parking tolls $650. Cellular phone $665. Health insurance premiums paid $1,980. So let's compare the results if she was a Schedule C versus a W-2. So if you look at the bottom here, she would have had $4,020 in SE. Now pull to the right. If this was W-2 earnings, $2,678. She's only paying half. Now, go to the next line where it says federal income tax, $1,665, because I'm getting all my deductions, right? But as a W-2, I'm not getting benefit because my standard deduction and the 2% and all that, I'm not getting the benefit. You with me? So it's $3,225, higher income tax. But let's look at the final result. The final result says as a Schedule C, $5,685. Under a W-2, $5,903. Judy would have been slightly better off by $215. That's what I call being in the range. That's not what I call overwhelming an argument to basically tell, well, now you got to keep an app, keep track of your miles, you got to keep a set of books, so on and so forth. This is what I want to clarify here. In other words, that people get planted in their mind that they've got this all of a sudden gold mine here. As you saw, she only resulted in maybe about $200 of savings. And when you run numbers on other people, that if they're married or other situations, it may have actually cost them more money, or they may have made money. Okay? So the situations can invariably change. No two people are going to be alike. That's the takeaway. So let's talk about automobile depreciation limits. Most of us are familiar with the passenger automobile limits as listed property under Code Section 280F. Well, one of the points I want to clarify is that vehicles used in the trade or business of transporting persons, like a taxi cab, the passenger automobile limits do not apply. Okay? So we would normally depreciate it as full 5-year maker's depreciation. That's the difference if this is the pursuit that they're engaged in. Okay? Now, the challenge that we have in today's tax law is that for employment status, you are either an employee or an independent contractor. One or the other. We don't have any middle one. We only have two classifications, and much of these laws goes back from the 1960s. But right now, because of these type of businesses, Uber, Airbnb, as we talk about later, eBay is very much like this, Facebook, they're middlemen. And middlemen, all it is what we call a website, piece of real estate, brings people together. So we kind of have to rethink our paradigm is this truly an employer-employee relationship? Thus, my suggestion is we should have some sort of safe harbor in-between method. Why do these companies want to treat them as independent contractors to begin with? FICA, right? That's a cost. Workers' comp, health insurance, FUTA. How about overtime? It's a real pain, right? Any of you do payroll here? Got to keep track of time. You go over, I owe you overtime. Okay? In California, over 8 hours, over 40, because other states it might be over 40 in a week. See? Also, your expenses. When you're an employee, you really shouldn't be incurring the wear and tear. Technically, the employer should be lawfully responsible for that. But again, the whole business model is trying to shift it to the individual. And that's what it's all predicated on. In a safe harbor method, what I'm saying is a proposed framework. Obviously, it boils down to withholding. There should be some sort of agreed upon withholding, and because of technology, the providers know your routes. They should be able to have some sort of estimation of your mileage expense and do withholding and pay half of the FICA so that we can kind of level the playing field. And obviously, as a concession, they're not going to be entitled to the traditional benefits. That would be my suggestion. This is not law. I'm giving you theory here to make this whole work. Otherwise, we're kind of dealing with this hodgepodge of, independent contractor, employee, and you don't have any rules of the road to run by. And I assure you, you're going to get people who each company is going to treat them differently subject to their interpretation. So let's talk about the next version when we move beyond ride sharing, is the whole idea of sharing your property or your assets. So, a lot of people like to travel. We're accustomed to staying in hotels. But what's happening and become extremely popular is that a lot of people are opting not to stay in hotels for a variety of reasons. You travel with a big family. You have to get multiple hotel rooms. Those darn resort fees, parking, convenience. I want a kitchen. I want some extra space. I want privacy, cost. All those reasons, this has been born for people to opt to, when they look for accommodations as opposed to traditional hotels like we're in, to private residences. And thus, you go to a website like this, Airbnb.com. There's VRBO, VacationRentalByOwner.com. They have become very common. How many of you have clients that rent properties? And any of them using one of these sites? A handful of you. And it's going to become more and more because people are looking at versus when you get, your traditional tenant versus the money I can make, they're kind of doing the numbers. And Sydney, up in your area, we're from San Diego and kind of where I'm in the area, people rent properties because they want to do weddings and other things and other occasions. It's not just to go on vacation. We also have our beaches. We have mountains nearby. We have a lot of hiking. We have a lot of horseback riding, so on and so forth. Same as your case where you're at in East County, Greta. You have all the hiking and everything, and so this becomes an alternative. So when we look at the numbers, as of 2015, 155 million people stayed in Airbnb properties. That is 22% more than Hilton. Okay? That's what it means. And this site is your client's, not a major corporation. That's who's hosting their properties on this site. That's the difference. So now we need to talk about some rules of the road. When we talk about these activities of renting property, we have some more established rules of the road. We don't have to necessarily invent them. So we have to go to the basic parameters. One bucket of people most likely are going to dabble in, see how it goes. I'm concerned about people tearing up my house. I don't know. I want to give it a try. So we need to talk about the occasional rental rules. So what is the occasional rental rules? It says under Code Section 280G that a residence, if it's rented less than 15 days in a year, it's excluded from income. It's tax-free. It's not viewed as a rental. It's not viewed as an activity. You got 15 days. Not 15 days each rental, 15 days in the whole year. Add up all the times you rent it out. Okay? You don't get any deductions. You just don't claim the income. All right? Now, Airbnb and all these sites and VRBO, they're already in tune to start reporting what you receive on 1099s. So we got to deal with these issues. Okay? So this is how I deal with it and how I propose. You got your Schedule E. Okay? You get your 1099, and we report it like normal. Box 3. For this example, I collected $3,500. Now, what I do is I go to other deductions, $3,500. I list exempt from tax per pursuant Code Section 280G. Net result 0. That way, I'm addressing the 1099 and I'm trying to be proactive from potential CP 2000. Okay? That's how I address it. When it's an occasional rental that I know it's exempt from tax. Any questions? Okay. Yes, sir.
I thought you had to use a Schedule C. This is a mistake.
We're going to get to the Schedule C. But we start with, what are you? Very occasional. I rented it a few days in a year. That's what we call an occasional rental. And I'll give you an example. You and your family, you go on a 2-week vacation to Hawaii, and you say, you know what? I want to kind of subsidize a little bit of my out-of-pocket expense, and I'm not going to be at home, so I'll give this a try. And you rent out your home, and it was just 14 days. That's not a business, and it's not a rental. That's why it's what's called an occasional rental activity stated by the code, okay? If it's in that bucket. Now, when we get outside this bucket and people say, hey, this is a good idea, I can make a little bit more money and I'm moving beyond the 15 days. Now we got to look at vacation home rules. That's the next bucket. And so in this bucket here, if a property is rented out more than 15 days in a year, now we have to look at 288. Okay? And in these rules, what it says that if the personal use exceeds the greater of 14 days or 10%, these rules kick in. And what it's going to mean in plain layman's terms is that my deductions are limited. Okay? That's what it means. Because you think, oh, I'm going to get all these deductions. I'm going to get that satellite internet. I'm going to get that gardening. I'm going to get all that. It's limited when we get into these rules. Okay? So I'm going to talk about short-term rental trap, but I want to give you reference just so that you know in your handout. On page 8, just basically gives the hierarchy or the pecking order just so that you know. At the top, 1, 2, 3, that's basically typically what you ordinarily deduct on Schedule A, which would be your mortgage, interest, and taxes. This is the order of sequence that you can take the deductions. Okay? Just want to point that out for your reference. Now, gentleman in the back asked about Schedule A. What's your name, sir?
No, that's Schedule C.
Yes, what's your name?
Keith Elway.
Keith asked about Schedule C. When we talk about Schedule C, this is what we call the short-term rental trap. This is bucket number 3. And in bucket number 3, we have to go to Reg 1.469-E, that if a average rental period is 7 days or less, the code says not a rental. If it's 30 days or less and I provide significant services, it's not a rental. So what that means is it's a business. When it says it's not a rental, it's a business. Schedule C. So we have to look at the average time that we rent these activities and compare. Okay? Now, when we talk about significant services, we're not talking about just changing out the bedding sheets and the towels. That's basic and incidental. What we're talking about is maybe a little bit more like a bread and breakfast, that you're providing meals, that you may be like a host, that you may give in terms of a tour. I'll give you an example. I had a doctor client of mine who just recently went with a small group and his family down to Puerto Vallarta. They rented up one of these places. It was somebody's lavish estate. They provided full maid service. They cooked all the meals. They pampered them. They took them horseback riding down to the beach. And he gave them, on a little tour, go out fishing. Those are significant services. Okay? So it doesn't have to go to that extent, but what we're saying is anything other than the accommodation and looking into that. But when does that apply? If the average rental period is under 30 days. So if it's under 7 days period, yet Schedule C, when we're getting over, because some people say 10 days or more only, then we have to look at special services. Okay? You with me on that? So that's what we look at. Now, here's the catch. So the catch is income is subject to SE, but if I don't materially participate, the losses are passive. Okay? Because your thinking is, okay, that's great. If I'm on Schedule C, I'm going to take all those losses, offset my other income. Has to be material participation. And many of these activities are not. And that is basically the catch. That you have self-employment business income, but passive loss treatment. Okay? So, you probably have never had a presentation or a workshop ever talk about TOT, or transient occupancy test. Is anyone ever? First time? Well, you're going to get one now because, yes, sir.
Before you go there to this, so in other words, Airbnb people, if they're successful, they make a net profit from their activity. It's Schedule C, it's subject to self-employment tax. It's another kind of earned income.
Correct.
If they're not, then you encounter all the passive activity loss.
That's correct. That's correct. That's the negative side. That's how it works. Yes, sir.
So if you have another rental property that's losing money, can you offset that loss to this?
No, because it's viewed as active income. Your passive activity loss rules are different.
So it doesn't apply.
Different ordering principle.
Most Airbnbs, I understand, is less than 7 days.
That's correct. And that's why I wanted to make very clear of the two rules. 7-day, 30-day. 7-day, no services. If it's going over 7, you're between the 30. Do I provide services? Okay? Those are the two rules you have to understand. Because if you're meeting any one of the two, you fall into Schedule C. Then I have to start asking my clients about material participation and looking in those tests. Because that's the ramification of it. Because your income, profit will be subject to SE, but your losses are suspended.
I don't understand the concept there. If they're saying it's a passive activity income, and I cannot use the passive losses to offset it, what's the logic?
I mean a passive income. I was just mean you're using the losses against other passive income, like you have Schedule E properties that have income.
Yes.
I was just
Can I?
mix up. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was asking.
No problem. So, yeah.